Times Picayune, dated June 19, 1993. A front-page article describes the most recent of the voodoo murders. Gabriel scans it but learns nothing new. The article reiterates that the voodoo aspect of the crimes is fake. Gabriel shivers. It looked real enough to him. Elsewhere, there's an article about the history of Jackson Square, called La Plaza d'Armas. Under French rule, it was used for executions, firing squads, hanging, even impalement and breaking on the wheel. Yikes! Of course, these days it's mostly a hangout for tourists, street musicians and local artists. Gabriel also scans the Aquarius horoscope for the day. Chances of a dark star rising on this day. Do not trust your instincts.
I feel a dark star rising, all right.
Ai, bem-vindos para o nosso cringíssimo Gabriel. Ai, ok. Vamos lá. E aí, Grace?
Got a minute, Grace?
What's up?
Do you know anything else about voodoo?
I've told you all I know. Sorry I can't be more help.
Tá bom.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
I know you shouldn't be messing with it, and I know you will anyway.
Tá.
Do you know anything about snakes?
Doing a family tree, Gabriel?
Very funny. I mean real snakes. You know, scaly, cold-blooded. I would have thought you'd find them empathetic.
Mm-hmm. I know very little about reptiles of any kind and prefer to keep it that way. I think there's a book on snakes around here somewhere, though.
Okay, thanks.
Tá. Eu já perguntei isso
Are
pra
you
ela, né?
sure you don't know what Caprice on car
Tem certeza? É.
I told you, I can't help you with that.
Tá. Mensagens.
Do you have messages for me?
Nope. None right now.
Could you do some research for me?
Sure, what?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Tá, ok. Então, eu sei, tem esse livrinho sobre cobras aqui.
Gabriel pulls down a book on snakes.
Snakes are legless.
Ah,
A
essa aqui eu já
snake
vi.
smell constrict.
Então, eu queria pesquisar.
This is the
Eu
last
sei! Não sei por que que o jogo tem a dublador falando isso.
putting the scales.
É, não adianta. Oh, caceta. Ok, vamos ver. Isso aqui era a carta em alemão. Deixa eu ver, eu consigo descobrir o que é Schattenjäger se eu pegar o dicionário?
Gabriel leaves.
Spiel.
Oh, meu Deus do céu.
Himmel.
Oh, meu Deus do céu. Você tem... Ele tem um dicionário de alemão e ele não consegue nem... Bom, anyway. Sei lá o que eu faço agora. Peraí. Tá, esse aqui é um gift card. Tá, deixa eu sair, vai.
See you later.
Don't hurry back on my account.
Tá. Vamos voltar aqui e perguntar se ele sabe...
Hello.
Bonjour, Monsieur Walker.
Oh, bienvenue, Madame Casino. Comment ça va? How you be feeling today?
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Walker, I'm certain someone's buried a slip-knot bag somewhere near my steps. I haven't slept a wink in weeks.
Oh, don't that beat all? Well, you're gonna need some easy night candles then.
Do you think that would help? I do hope you're right. I said 3 rosaries this morning for Our Lady's intervention.
Rosaries are good, sure enough. But you burn those candles too and you gonna whip any old no-sleep gree-gree, I tell you for sure.
Very well, Mr. Walker. Put them on my account and send them round to my house. Oh, And there's another thing. I didn't catch her at it, but I know Mrs. Lefebvre put stomachache powder in my tea at the last meeting of the Creole Grand Dames. I've been in misery.
You put 9 pinheads up in a little box, add a pinch of graveyard dust, and put it under her front
Nossa
porch step.
senhora.
That'll turn the trick back on Mrs. Lefebvre, and she'll be the one with the bellyache. I have the pins and the dust. Right here if you want 'em.
If the Blessed Virgin will grant me her protection, I'll be safe from these practitioners of evil.
Oui, madame. Though it don't hurt to be proactive none neither. Now does it?
Naturellement, monsieur. Merci beaucoup.
Mais non, madame. It is nothing. Au revoir.
Au revoir, Monsieur Walker.
Nossa, o cara vendendo as pagelanças pra mulher, fazendo os negócios. Vamos lá.
Can I ask you just a few more questions?
Whatever, man.
Have you ever heard of a Schottenjäger?
Man, I don't even know what language that is.
Madame.
That customer of yours, the little old lady,
Customer?
the woman I saw in here, Madame Cazonou, you called her.
I don't talk about my customers to men who come in off the street.
Ok.
What did you mean when you said Cabri sans corps?
I didn't say that.
You did.
Tá, não adianta. Ele vai fazer desentendido. Cobras.
Do you know anything about snakes?
What kind of snakes?
The kind they use in voodoo?
Pythons and boas. So I've heard.
Really? Do you have one?
Are you crazy? What would I want with a python?
Não sei. Talvez programar algumas coisas. Nossa. Tá, vamos lá. Cabo de Sancó, cobras, véspera, Schottenjäger.
What's the significance of St. John's Eve?
I've said...
Tá bom. Tá, ok.
The glass jar.
And would...
The sign says potion ingredients. These jars must be for do-it-yourselfers. The sign says power items.
Lodestone powder. 5-finger grass. Something tells me I'm not in Kansas anymore.
Isso é alguma piada interna. Ah, tá. Acho que é do Mágico de Oz.
Lodestone powder.
Tá, ok.
The mask appears. It's a mannequin. The poster reads, "Power will be yours when you use Papa Legba's power drawing incense and Master Power oil. Buy some today." The sign says, "Special Saint Jean Eve."
Tá, tá.
Lanyap, my friend.
Tá. Tá, acho que por enquanto eu não tenho nenhum... Ele não vai falar da minha cliente. Da cliente dele, aliás. Se eu mostrar essa foto pra ele.
Look at the voodoo paraphernalia around the body in the photograph. Are you sure you can't tell me anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about it. Nothing.
Se eu mostrar pra ele uma escaminha.
Do you know anything about snake scales?
I got some snake root and snake powder, but I order them wholesale. I don't handle snakes. I don't like them at all.
Ok. Já viu esses desenhos?
Do you recognize this pattern?
Don't look familiar at all, sir.
Tá, ok. Deixa eu ir embora. Tá. Acho que eu ia vir aqui, né, no museu, que eu ia falar com o doutor. Aí.
Welcome, my friend.
Hello?
I
Olá.
am the proprietor, Dr. John. If you have any questions, I will be happy to assist.
John é seu sobrenome?
Great. My name is Knight, and I'll probably take you up on that.
Tá. Pera aí. E essa
A
cobra?
very
Sim, eu queria...
a striking portrait of a
Tá.
Dr. John is a huge man. If his manner weren't so pleasant, he'd be intimidating.
Uhum.
An authentic-looking pole marks the center of the room. Authentic what? Gabriel isn't sure.
Ok, bom. Primeiro vamos dar um papinho rápido. Agora que eu vi que tem um esqueletinho aqui, eu quero dar uma... Nossa, por que você tá andando tão devagar?
This is quite a place you have here.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. I have dedicated myself to the preservation of this unique culture. It is gratifying to see others reap the fruits I have sown.
Tá, deixa eu dar uma olhada nesse esqueletinho aqui.
Damn. I've always wanted a skeleton with a bowl on its head.
Ah, tem uma...
Damn.
Tá, ok. Então, vou pegar.
Even if that were for sale, Gabriel couldn't afford it.
Ok. Tá, então vamos conversar com ele.
Could I ask you some questions?
That is why I am here.
Ok. Voodoo.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
Muita coisa, né?
Historical voodoo? Or the voodoo currently practiced in the city?
Voodoo histórico.
Tell me about historical voodoo.
Very well. I will start at the beginning, Mr. Knight, and will go on from there at your prompting.
Sounds good.
As you may know, voodoo is a grassroots religion formed by the mixing together of many different African tribal religions and Anglo religions, such as Catholicism or Protestantism. In other words, it is a religion born of the African slave trade, but African slaves were imported not only by the United States, but also into the West Indies where the French and Spanish ran plantation islands. Prior to 1803, the New Orleans area was owned by France. The French Creole in those days owned many African slaves. But the Creole did not permit their slaves to gather, giving no chance for voodoo to breed here natively.
The Creole also knew enough
Nossa, mudou.
about the corrupted pagan practices of the West Indies slaves to ban the importing of slaves from that region.
Eu acho que essa última frase foi dita por um outro dublador. Vocês viram a diferença na voz? Tá, mais um pouco do voodoo histórico.
So, how did voodoo come to New Orleans?
After the Louisiana Purchase, American legislators relaxed regulations. Slaves were permitted to gather. The Americans also removed the ban on West Indies slaves.
Around the same time, a slave revolt occurred in Santo Domingo, what is now Haiti. Between the lifting of the ban and the Haitian revolt, West Indies slaves began pouring into New Orleans.
Some of them were free people of color, freed or escaped slaves. Some came with their white owners who were fleeing from the revolt.
Ok, vamos lá.
What happened when the West Indies slaves got here?
They brought voodoo with them. The native slaves were more than enthusiastic about embracing it. It gave them power, Mr. Knight, if only in the form of a communal bond. Among the first meeting places were the Bayou Saint John and the shore of Lake Pontchartrain. The early voodoos were heavy snake worshippers, worshipping the one they called the Great Zombie.
Tell me more about historical voodoo.
By 1817, the voodoo activities were beginning to cause fear among the white slave owners. An ordinance was passed to forbid slave gatherings except in designated public areas at designated times. The time was Sunday afternoons and the place, Congo Square. The slaves and free people of color gathered to dance simulations of their voodoo dances right in sight of Creole society. Of course, they also continued to meet in private for the real thing.
Ok.
Tell me more about historical voodoo.
There were a variety of kings and queens at first, voodoo priests and priestesses. But from about 1830, a single power emerged. This was a voodoo queen named Marie Laveau. Marie Laveau ruled voodoo in New Orleans for many years.
Ok.
Tell me more about historical voodoo.
I've given you as much detail as I...
Tá bom. Então, o voodoo hoje em dia.
Tell me about current voodoo.
Many people think of voodoo in terms of magic spells or gree-gree. That kind of practice is actually called hoodoo, and is only a part of true voodoo. Voodoo, the religion, has a strong following in New Orleans. In fact, it is growing quite rapidly. There are several voodoo churches or temples in the city, and others all across the United States. African Americans see it as a tradition all their own. Whites, and there are many in their religion, are attracted to it because they think it is exotic. I, personally, am more interested in the history of voodoo. Some of the new movements are copying Haitian or even African voodoo. But it is the voodoo of New Orleans that I find so intriguing.
Tell me more about current voodoo.
There are many voodooians in New Orleans. They often do business selling gree-gree, telling fortunes, providing luck, and occasionally misfortune. Perhaps you would like to meet a voodooan. We refer those who seek a deeper experience with voodoo to a local practitioner, Magentia Moonbeam.
Sure, I'd love to meet her.
She lives on the corner of Orleans and Dauphine. I will call her and tell her you might stop by.
Great, thanks.
Mais alguma coisa sobre voodoo hoje em
Tell
dia?
me more about current voodoo.
You have tapped my resources.
Tá bom. Hoodoo.
Is there anything else I should know about hoodoo?
Not if your interest is primarily in voodoo. Hoodoo is of interest to those who study rural folk traditions, but it will not aid you in understanding true voodoo.
Ok. Sobre os assassinatos voodoo.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
The killings in the newspaper? I know that they have nothing to do with true voodoo in New Orleans.
What do you think of New Orleans?
It is the only city in the United States as far as I am concerned.
Não quer elaborar?
What is it about New Orleans that you so admire?
It has a real culture of its own, Mr. Knight, amid the horrid blandness that is Americana. New Orleans alone has a voice.
Spoken like a true New Orleanian.
Ok. Cobras.
Do you know anything about snakes?
Ah, you have perhaps noticed the museum's snake, Mr. Knight. They are beautiful creatures, do you not agree? And the tourists seem to associate them with voodoo.
Mais?
Is the snake yours? Do you use it in your practice of voodoo?
I admire the spirit of the snake, Mr. Knight, but snakes like the museums can be quite dangerous to handle.
You didn't really answer my question.
I think I did, Mr. Knight.
Porque elas são perigosas, ok. Véspera de São João.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
It is one of the important ceremonial nights in voodoo.
Elabore.
What else can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I am afraid I do not know the origins of St. John's Eve. I only know that it was a night of ritual long before voodoo came to New Orleans.
Ok.
Do you have any idea what Gabrieel Saint-Gar means?
I fear my French is not all it should be, Mr. Knight.
Marie Laveau. Conta dela.
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
There were actually two Marie Laveaux, mother and daughter. Most people thought they were the same woman. Her continued youth added to the mystique. The original, the mother, was also known as Widow Paris. It was she that began the empire. When the Widow Paris began to practice there were many voodooans in the city. By 1830, she was voodoo queen of all New Orleans.
Mais alguma coisa sobre
Tell
ela?
me more about Marie Laveau.
The widow Paris was a hairdresser for rich Creole ladies. She also paid household servants to spy for her. Between the two, she knew everything about everyone who mattered in New Orleans. She was not above using her information to appear psychic, to intimidate, or even to blackmail.
You sound as though you admire her.
For a black woman in the mid-1800s to gain power is an incredible thing, Mr. Knight, however she achieved it.
Ok, mais alguma coisa?
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
She kept a pet snake, danced with it too. She held traditional voodoo ceremonies out by the lake. She took herself seriously, very seriously. But she was not above selling tickets for her events to curiosity seekers. She was not above using voodoo any way she could to make money, that is for certain. But if she had been in another line of work, in another age, that would have been interpreted as entrepreneurial genius rather than a sign of fraudulence.
Concordo.
Hey, you don't need to convince me. I admire anyone that can actually make a living.
McLevin. Ok, mais alguma coisa sobre ela?
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
It was Marie Laveau who defined the voodoo that is truly and uniquely the voodoo of New Orleans. She invented hundreds, if not thousands of spells, potions, charms, and incantations. These form the basis of the modern practice, not to mention the folk tradition of hoodoo.
Ok, acho que já tá o suficiente, né? Chatinha.
Have you ever heard of a Schottenjäger?
No, I have not.
Não. Ok, sobre você.
Tell me about yourself.
Me?
Yes, if you don't mind.
What is it you wish to learn?
Por que você abriu o museu?
Why did you open a voodoo museum?
The subject has fascinated me all my life, and I wanted to help preserve the cultural heritage it represents.
What kind of background in voodoo do you have?
Let us say that I cut my teeth on it, Mr. Knight.
No, cut
It
my
is
teeth é
in
uma
my
expressão.
blood.
Cut my teeth é uma expressão. Tipo, pode dizer que eu já aprendi algumas coisas sobre ele. Né? Já tive experiência sobre ele. Só que eles traduziram literalmente, tipo... I already cut my teeth in this. Tipo, eu já ganhei uma experiência, um conhecimento disso. Ok.
Do you do anything besides run the museum?
No. The museum does not make me a rich man, but my material needs are simple. I prefer to focus on my one true interest in life.
What are your own religious beliefs?
My beliefs are too personal and too complex to discuss with a layman, Mr. Knight.
Tá bom.
Just tell me anything.
I am originally from the West Indies myself, you know.
Really? What brought you to New Orleans?
I was drawn here for personal reasons.
Just tell me anything.
I am a vegetarian.
Really? I can't imagine living without meat.
That must be the hunter in you, Mr. Knight.
Just tell me anything.
I do not care for small talk, Mr. Knight.
Tá bom, então, tchau.
Actually, I can't think of a thing.
Then, let us discuss something else.
Bom, acho que eu já falei tudo. Tchau. Vou mostrar.
Do these marks look familiar?
They look like the scribbling of a child to me.
Okay, thanks.
A foto.
Could you look at this and tell me if you recognize anything about the ritual?
This is truly offensive. This is from one of those recent killings, is it not?
Well, actually,
But the police already know that this so-called voodoo ritual is fake. Voodoo is a respectable religion. This kind of thing has nothing to do with voodoo in this city.
Fine. Let's say that's true. Are you sure there's nothing about the items in this photo?
There is nothing about this sickness that I would identify as voodoo. Nothing.
Thanks for looking then.
Ok. Agora que eu vi, tem uma caixinha aqui.
On the table is a small coffin. So small, in fact, that it would only fit an infant.
Charming.
Ok, então vamos abrir.
This coffin is so small.
How observant of you, Mr. Knight.
Is it for dolls or something?
It symbolizes the afterlife. It is purely decorative, I assure you.
Huh. Imagine that.
Ok.
A street drummer has settled outside the museum.
Se eu perguntar sobre esses bateristas aqui?
Could I ask you...
Of course. I also find our dialogue stimulating.
Ok. Cabras, cabrima de próprio. Ah, não tem. Tá. Ok, então, tchau.
I'll be going.
Goodbye, Mr. Knight.
Tá, aqui é o lugar da calma. Vamos dar uma olhada na praça. Tem alguma coisa acontecendo? Que saiu no jornal até?
The juggler looks like a beginner practicing his act. An artist is taking advantage of the fine weather.
Vamos conversar com ele.
Nice drawing of the cathedral.
Thanks.
It's really precise.
Well, I'm an architectural student, actually. It's good practice.
Could I ask you some questions?
I'd rather not. I really get focused when I'm drawing.
Okay, fine.
Você não consegue falar e pintar ao mesmo tempo? Eita, tap dance.
Jackson Square is a good place to rest while exploring.
Eu queria...
A small boy is tap dancing enthusiastically for a lucky dog vendor. The vendor ignores him. The lucky dog vendor has his nose buried in a paperback novel. Gabriel noticed that it is not. Big surprise. One of his.
Ok, falar com o menino.
You dance pretty well for a kid.
Give me some money then.
I don't have any.
Don't block the view, mister.
Could I get a lucky dog, please?
Not now, I'm busy.
Oxi!
An unambitious person? In the 90s? Ah, amazing.
Ok. Bom, então parece que não tem nada de muito... Aqui eu não tinha ido, o observatório da Jackson Square. No primeiro dia.
St. Louis Cathedral. The original church on this site was built in 1724 and was named for Louis IX of France. That church burnt in the Great Fire of 1788. The present church dates from 1851. 4 pairs of binoculars.
Tá.
These binoculars aren't go...
Oh, meu Deus do céu. Operar. Ok, tá. Nada pra ver aqui ainda. Vamos no bar. de bar, tô com sede. Vamos lá. Nham, nham, nham.
You pack a bud?
Eita! Paga pau. Eita. Ok, vamos voltar aqui e falar.
Could I ask you a few questions?
Sure. I'm not too busy at the moment.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
I'm no expert.
What do you know about...
They say a lot of voodoo stuff is found near the bodies.
Cobras.
Do you know anything about snakes?
What about them?
Oh, just anything.
Man, you ask the weirdest questions. I don't know anything about snakes.
Mm-hmm.
What's the significance of St. John's Eve?
All I know is it's some kind of voodoo holiday.
Does the phrase "Gabrieel sans cœur" mean anything to you?
You know what goes in it?
I don't think it's a drink.
Oh, then I probably don't know anything about it.
Have you ever heard of Marie Laveau?
Sure. She's kind of the patron saint of voodoo in New Orleans. Don't know too much about her, but tourists sure get off on all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of a Schottenjäger?
Never heard of it.
What can you tell me about your regulars in here?
I'd call you a regular, Gabe. And one of our local writer celebrities, too. Been coming in here, what, 10 years now?
Don't remind me.
We're still waiting for that bestseller.
Don't hold your breath.
Tá.
So what has Sam told you about voodoo?
That's about all I can remember.
Tá, ok. Eu tenho que falar com o Sam.
Excuse me. I hate to interrupt your game, but could I ask you a few questions?
What game? This isn't a game. It's a slaughter.
He's right, you know, so let me die in peace, would you?
Checkmate. Again.
Son of a bitch.
Fila da mãe. Eu acho que eu tenho que dar alguma coisa pra eles. Pra, sei lá, mostrar a foto.
Does this mean anything to you?
Not really.
Ele nem se incomodou. Ó.
Does this mean anything to you?
Can't say that it does.
Ok.
Does this mean anything to you?
Yeah, get away from me with her, will you?
Tá. Eu preciso mostrar alguma coisa pra ele, pra conseguir a atenção dele. Tá, talvez não seja agora. Ok, já vim aqui. Aqui. Acho que não tem nada, né? Ninguém. Vambora. Tá bom, vamos aqui, vai.
Welcome, Seeker. You must be the one Dr. John called me about.
I guess so. My name is...
Wait? Gabriel Knight?
You're too quick for me.
Actually, Dr. John told me. You have come to the right place, Mr. Knight. Tell me how I can help.
Já tô vendo uma cobra aqui.
A large, sluggish snake rests on the floor of the fancy bird cage. Apparently, Magenta is not a fastidious housekeeper.
Tem uma troca de pele.
A shed skin shares the cage with its original owner.
Meu Deus, coitada. Não, esses pessoal mantém as cobras num lugar minúsculo, não limpa a jaula delas, que horror.
Magenta Moonbeam is wrapped in gauze and silks. She looks vaguely mysterious and mysteriously vague. A large crystal ball is prominently displayed. The mask is made of carved wood and looks African. The shelf holds a variety of unusual objects, the kind of thing Gabriel refers to as junk.
Deixa eu dar uma salvadinha, né? Gabriel, Cabaleiro. Ok.
Dr. John tells me you're a voodoo practitioner of some kind.
Yes, I am a voodoo yen, a voodoo priestess.
Do you get many people in here on an average day?
Some days the need for my power is greater than others. But I have many regular clients who would be lost without my vision, Mr. Knight.
I can imagine.
Tá.
Could I ask you a few questions?
Of course, Seeker.
Voodoo.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
My practice is mainly selling charms and potions with magic power, such as gree-gree and voodoo oils. You know, everything from unrequited love to wandering spouses to winning a lawsuit. But my spells and charms are powerful, and they work.
Mais sobre
What
voodoo?
can you tell me about voodoo?
Much of a voodoo yen's work is protecting her clients from the spell of others. I make special protective gree-gree to be worn in secret. They keep evil spells from working against my clients.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
The recipes for voodoo charms have been handed down from master to apprentice for centuries.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
I have told you all it is proper for you to know, Monsieur Knight.
Ok.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
Why, that has nothing to do with me and my clientele. But I can tell you that you should stay as far from it as possible. There is badness there. Very bad.
Não brinca.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
New Orleans is the center of voodoo practice in the United States.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
It is a fascinating city with many dark secrets.
Que dark secrets?
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
It is my favorite place in the world.
Tá bom, não vai evoluir. Cobras.
Do you know anything about snakes?
Snakes? You mean like my beloved Grimwald? She's a python, you know. Quite deadly in the wrong hands. I was trained by one of the great voodoo queens to learn how to hypnotize and handle snakes.
Tá, véspera de São...
What's the significance of St. John's Eve?
St. John's Eve? It is the greatest night of the voodoo year. There is always a traditional conclave on St. John's Eve. Most of our voodoo churches these days hold functions in the church hall. But in the old days, they had ceremonies out in the wild, and they wore animal masks and had a huge bonfire and dancing. I used to go when I was an apprentice, sometimes in the swamp, you know, Bayou St. John, sometimes at the lake, Lake Pontchartrain.
Do you have any idea what Gabriel Saint Coeur means?
No. No, I don't.
Eu não vi muita firmeza, hein?
Do you have any idea?
Não.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
Oh, yes. She was the first of the great voodoo queens.
Fala mais.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
She ruled voodoo in New Orleans for 100 years, they say.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
I'm sure a historian.
Tá bom. Máscaras de animais.
Tell me about the animal masks.
I saw them used once or twice when I was younger, but you don't see them much anymore. They are too close.
Too close to what?
Just bad karma.
Fala
Tell
mais.
me about...
I don't know.
Tá. Schottenjäger.
Have you ever heard the word Schottenjäger?
I don't know anything about that.
Tell me about yourself.
Yes? What would you like to hear?
How'd you get into this business?
I trained in the voodoo arts for many years with the great Queen Tabitha.
Really? Who's she?
You have never heard of her? For shame! I can see you know little of the world of magic.
I'm beginning to get that impression, yes. What kind of people come to see you?
Seekers after the truth, such as yourself.
Do you do anything else?
I am a voodoo yen, and that is plenty. It takes much spiritual effort.
How many voodoo yens are there?
No one knows exactly. Many practice in secret. There are probably hundreds. But of course the level and the power of the voodoo yens differ greatly, depending on their training and natural gifts.
Tell me anything at all.
I haven't always lived in New Orleans. I came here from Kansas as a young woman.
Tell me anything at all.
I began studying voodoo more than 20 years ago. I am well versed in the magical art.
Ok.
I can't think of anything.
Very well.
About Grimwald.
What about her?
Where'd you get Grimwald?
She belonged to a traveling reptile show. She was being terribly mistreated, so I offered to buy her. She's named after a spirit guide I had once. The spirit Grimwald was a very powerful female snake priestess in Egyptian times.
Grimwald doesn't sound Egyptian.
I only know what the spirits tell me. Monsieur, I am sure they know better than we.
How'd you learn to handle Grimwald?
I told you a great voodoo queen taught me. She learned from Marie Laveau herself.
Ah, fascinating.
Dá uma das escamas?
Would you consider giving me one of Grimwald's scales?
No, I couldn't do that. You might do some gree-gree of your own, no? One must be very careful with such things. Hair clippings, nail parings, and snake scale.
É o que me disseram lá quando eu fui fazer uma pagelância. Mentira, nunca fiz. É muito caro.
How about showing me how you handle Grimwald?
Really? You would like to see me dance, perhaps?
That would be swell.
I won't make you wait, Monsieur Knight.
Opa, vai dançar.
No matter what you see, do not be frightened.
I'll give it my best shot.
Oh, a cara da cobra. Os olhinhos amarelos dela. Tipo, meu Deus do céu, não sou paga pra isso. Eu posso tentar pegar esse cara?
Gabriel grabs the shed snake skin while Magenta is otherwise occupied.
Cobra.
They are truly inspiring, isn't it?
That's certainly one word for it.
Tá. Deixa eu...
Could I ask you a few...
Certainly.
Faltou... Gris.
Give me an example of a gris-gris.
All right. Here's an old one. Take a lodestone and some brimstone to a crossroads at midnight. Light the brimstone with a match, and a spirit will come and give you advice in gambling.
Oh, gostei.
Give me an example of a gris-gris.
Here's an old hoodoo Dr. Gree-Gree. Place a dime under your client's tongue, and if the client is under a spell of any kind, the dime will turn black.
Isso não é muito higiênico.
Give me an example of a gris-gris.
To send someone away, take a rotten egg and write that person's name on it 9 times.
Nossa, como vai caber?
You can also write on it where you want to send that person to. Take it and throw it against his door at midnight.
Give me an example of a gris-gris.
Here's a nasty one. To kill someone, get a sock or a shoe that belongs to that person. Put graveyard dirt in it and bury it under their front steps.
Does that work?
I don't know. I never tried it.
Give me an example of a gris-gris.
To ensure the safety of your child, cut a lock of its hair while it is still a baby and keep it with you. The child must have all its hair before it can die.
These are interesting.
They're very old. The gree-gree that I prepare is much more powerful, I can assure you, but I don't give out those secrets.
É, o que eu ia falar, tipo, ela tá falando assim, livremente, ela deve estar falando dos negócios que é mais uma simpatia, né? Que é de conhecimento geral.
About Grimwald.
What about her?
Fala qualquer coisa sobre a cobra.
Tell me anything at all.
You have to be careful when handling a snake. They're more delicate than they look.
I'll bet.
Tá, ok.
Nothing, never mind.
All right?
Bom, ok. Eu simplesmente vou embora, não vou nem comprar uma coisinha. Será que eu mostro pra ela? Deixa eu mostrar isso aqui.
Does this mean anything to you?
These are magic symbols. Deep magic.
Really? Have you seen them before?
No?
Then how do you know they're magic symbols?
Seeker, my eyes are unveiled to see truly that which is in front of me.
Uh-huh. Thanks. Tons.
Tipo, ela sabe que é mágico, mas ela não sabe de onde vem, ok.
Does this mean anything to you?
I can be of no help to you, Seeker.
Tá, a argila não serve pra nada. Quer dizer, vai servir pra alguma coisa, óbvio. E esse símbolo aqui, ó.
Does this mean anything to you?
These are...
Really?
No.
Tá.
Seeker?
Uh-huh.
Tá, é que eu mostrei o quadradinho e depois o outro, ok. Mostro? Mostro, né? Por que não?
Could you look at this and tell me if you recognize anything about it?
That's from those voodoo murders, isn't it? That has nothing to do with me.
Tá bom. Eu vou mostrar essa escaminha. Será que...
Since Magenta has a snake, it might be the best not to discuss the snake scales with her.
Tá bom, ok. Então...
Magentia's parlor is as...
Tá bom. Então vou embora. Tchau, tchau.
Well, I guess I'll be gone now.
The only vice is the absence of love.
I've heard that. Bye now.
Ok. Ficamos no cemitério. Aliás, tem mais uma coisa que eu preciso fazer aqui. Eu preciso olhar as escaminhas.
Gabriel magnifies the shed skin from Magentia, Moonbeam's snake. The snake scales are hued brown.
Bom,
They don't match the scale from Lake Pontchartrain.
sim, mas elas estão amarronzadas porque, sei lá, a cobra trocou de pele e a pele deu uma...
It's the shed skin from Moonbeam's snake.
Tá, ok. Ok. Tá. Então deixa eu falar com o mano aqui.
Could I have a minute of your time?
You got something to say, son?
Mind if I pick your brain a minute?
Go ahead. These folks ain't in no hurry.
Deixa eu perguntar algumas coisas.
What can you tell me?
I don't really care to talk.
Tá, ok.
What do you know?
I told
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
there's lots of things to see here, but none.
Tá.
Do you know anything about snakes?
Snakes? I see snakes around here all the time. Most of them ain't poisonous, course.
Que tipo de cobras?
Do you know anything about snakes?
I don't mind snakes myself, but lots of folks are afraid of them.
What else can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I told you all I know about that.
Gabriel Sancor, eu
Do
perguntei,
you
né?
have any idea what Gabriel Sancor means?
No, can't say that I do.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
Sure. She was the voodoo queen of New Orleans. A powerful voodooine and a powerful sorceress. Believers still come to her tomb, you know. They write secret marks on the walls, leaving offerings and things. Then there's the tourists. They come out of curiosity. As a matter of fact, that big Dr. John fella from the Voodoo Museum, he's here at least once today. But Marie Laveau's tomb ain't the only one the believers visit and make markings and leave offerings at.
Fala mais.
What else can you tell me about Marie Laveau?
Her tomb's on all our tours. Even the Baptists come round here to gawk. Course, you may not know this, but some of the real serious voodoo types argue that she ain't in this one at all, but down in an unmarked tomb in number 3. It's all the same to me, I say. Save me a lot of cleanup work if she weren't here, if you ask me.
Mastro de animais.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
I don't know what you talking about.
Have you ever heard the word Schottenjäger?
I don't know what you talking about.
4 tumbas marcadas.
You said there were other marked tombs?
Yep. I seen bull hearts left on tombs and a nest of vulture feathers, plates of peas and corn green, animal parts, human parts even, it looked like. Male parts,
Eita!
if you get my meaning. And this at one of the great family crypts, mind you. Odd how them types just pick a spot and stick to it.
What other tombs get marked? Can you show me?
No, I ain't one for naming names. I don't like to encourage that kind of thing. It's distressing to the families, and rightly so. Don't know how that sort of thing gets started. Why folks come to start leaving stuff at that one spot. But it happens all the same.
Ok. Já conversei sobre o cemitério, né?
Tell me something about...
Just look around.
Tá, ok. Acabei de ver no Google. Cabrito sans corps é cabrito sem chifre. Ok. Bom, vamos olhar aqui.
The marks are reddish in color and reminds...
Tem a ver com isso aqui?
Using that on the tomb wall won't help.
Tá bom. Tá, ok. Saiu. Tá, então vamos começar a dar uma olhadinha nas tumbas marcadas.
The imposing tomb is elaborately labeled Gede.
Que é da mulher que ele tá interessado.
Most of the plaster has fallen away over the years to reveal walls of red brick. This tomb is smaller than most others in the cemetery.
Kind of a pup tent for the dead.
This old tomb has a sword carved into the stone below the name of the deceased.
Pra cá. Aqui. Tá bem para baixo? Não. Tá, ok. Bom. Tá bom. Sai. Sai! Vamos para a delegacia. Consertando o negócio. Aham. Não, tem que perguntar.
Got a second, officer?
What can I do you for?
Deixa eu perguntar outras coisas, vai.
What can you
I told you.
Tá.
Are you sure?
Hey, buddy. Do I look like the kind of...
I don't know. What would that kind of lowlife look like?
Like hamburger meat if I got a hold of them. Kinda like
Eita.
what you're gonna look like in about 5 seconds.
Okay, sorry I asked. What can you tell me?
Best food in the world. You can get it right here in New Orleans. Muffaletta sandwiches. Beignets. Good Cajun coffee. Yep. Man can die happy in this city.
Tá bom.
Do you know anything about snakes?
I told you I didn't, and
Tá bom.
Are you sure you don't know?
you don't want to...
Do
Marie
you know anything about Marie Laveau?
Marie who? Is she the one that hangs out on Conti and Nash?
No. Never mind. Do you know anything about animal masks?
I see plenty of masks during Mardi Gras. Not many animals, though. Of course, there's plenty of animals underneath.
I'm here to see Detective Mosley.
He's in his office. Go on back.
Ok. Nossa, sumiu o negocinho ali.
Hey, Mostly.
Yeah, what is it, you wanker?
Vamos falar um pouquinho.
Can I ask you about some stuff?
You're the writer. Ask away.
What's the status on the Voodoo Murders case?
You're as filled in as me.
Tá.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
Animal masks? You mean like those Halloween masks they sometimes use in robberies?
I don't think so. More like real animals.
Never ran across anything like that.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
Is she that red-headed chick that works at Freddy's?
No.
Then I don't know her.
Eu acho estranho, porque uma pessoa de New Orleans, eu acho que ele saberia pelo menos das lendas locais, eu acho.
Have you ever called the hair club for men?
I'd rather have no hair.
De novo, a mesma piada.
So how'd you ever find anything in this office?
Hey, I get my...
Trying for a real estate job with that coat?
No. Are you trying out for a janitorial job with that hair?
Are those new shoes? What are those, hush puppies? Kind of a mud brown suede kind of a thing?
Hey, I'm on my feet all day, all right? Is that okay with you?
Mostly. I'm being perfectly sincere.
Yeah, you and my grandmother. Right.
Ok. Agora tá na hora de fazer uma molecagem.
The suit does...
Eu não quero... Eu quero abrir a porta. Sabe?
I'll let you get back to it.
Have a good one.
Salvando. Vou mexer aqui.
The gauge is fixed in...
Operar. Peraí, tá em que... Tá em 70. Não, bom, vou botar em 90. Aqui, ó. Tá em 90 ou não? Pronto. Agora eu vou deixar tudo bem quente para ele tirar o casaco. E agora eu vou cometer um crime.
It's hot in here. Dang, the air conditioning must be on the blink. Are you hot? Man, I'm hot.
A animaçãozinha até que ficou bem feita, né?
Can I ask you about some stuff?
You're the writer. Ask away.
Ele sem a camisa. Café.
How about getting me some coffee?
No way.
Please, please.
All right. Some people are never satisfied.
Vai. Pega. Essa lerdeza.
I think I'll just borrow this badge.
Rápido!
Hey, what are you doing with my coat?
Nothing. I thought I saw something crawling on it.
Just drink this.
Thanks. Tons. I mean it.
Então, tchau. Nem dei tchau dessa vez pro cara. Ai, ai, aqui. Tá, aqui é a casa da... Eu ainda posso vir aqui? Nossa, achei que eu não ia mais poder vir depois. Tá, ok. Eu não tenho mais nada pra ver aqui, na verdade. Eu não quero ir na casa dela aqui ainda. Quero voltar aqui.
Hi.
Uh-huh.
Can I ask you just a few more questions?
Whatever, man.
Have you ever heard of Marie Laveau?
Marie? She's somebody from the old days. One of those folk tales. Oh, the tourists eat it up, non?
Alguma coisa?
Have you ever heard of Marie Laveau?
I don't know much, monsieur. Someone at Voodoo Museum can tell you all about her.
Máscaras de animais.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
Like the ones in the voodoo rituals they do for the tourists?
Right.
I used to sell a few as souvenirs. The only one left is Willie Jr. over there. The old crocodile. Well, he's sort of a mascot now, him.
Willie Jr.
About Willie Jr., would you be willing to let him go?
Maybe. For $100.
$100? You gotta be kidding.
Me and Willie Jr. very close, non. I could part with him for less.
Ok. Tá. Ok. Bom, deixa eu voltar pra livraria.
Hello, beautiful. It's me.
Really? I forgot you were gone.
Ok. Bom, acho que deu uma boa avançada aqui. Vou dar a salvada. Eu devia ter salvado de novo em Gabriel Ladino. Vou salvar Gabriel Ladino. E a gente continua no próximo vídeo. Até mais!